What's the deal, my people? You know it is the Don Tony Teflon. I'm back at you, another one, and this one is the Changeling episode 7. I know a lot of people might have watched this episode and said, what the hell is going on? Don't fear, the Don is here. I'm going to explain to you everything that took place in this episode and what this episode actually means. We got another big theory right from this, and I'm here to talk about it. So let's go. So the episode starts off with Lillian walking through the red light district in New York. At that time, she leaves a message for Apollo on his cell phone, and it's been 3 weeks since they had their argument the last time they talked. And while she's walking, we can see exactly that this is not the same timeline that we know of, because there are peep shows for 25 cents, and that does not cost 25 cents anymore. We then see her enter the Elks Hotel, which is dubbed the shittiest hotel in the world. And for some strange reason, when she walks in this hotel, we can see her cheeks start to bleed. We'll get back to that. Now, we can easily tell that this is back in the day because the TV set itself has a rotary dial, and the issue the anchor on TV is talking about happened in 1982, so that's where we can pinpoint exactly where she's at. Now, this is obviously a dream episode used to explain exactly what happened to Apollo's father and why it happened to Apollo's father. But I do believe that in this dream, we do get some facts that we can take and use for the story going forward. That's why all the characters that we see inside of this hotel, we have already seen in the show in their real form, but in their mind, they're just using these people to play these roles for this hotel. Now, in the beginning of the episode, it's mentioned that a trans woman in a gold dress had been murdered in this hotel, and in Lillian's memory, she sees a trans woman in a gold dress handing her the red suitcase we've seen young Lillian sink to the bottom of the ocean all the way back in episode 4. When she opens this suitcase, we can see the gold dress inside with a pair of gold heels. So in this episode, we see that it is basically about Lillian, who wanted to kill herself in this hotel, commit suicide for what happened to Apollo's father. But before she does this to herself, she wants to explain the exact reason why everything happened the way it did to Apollo, so she's using a tape recorder as a confession in this whole situation. That's when she starts talking about Apollo's father, Brian, and how he was so wounded by his parents that he could never get past that grief. And he took that grief out on her, and that is why their relationship truly could never move to the point where it should have moved to. Now, while trying on the red dress, she says that she ignored all the red flags about him that she did see about him, and she shouldn't have. Now, during her time at the hotel, the electricity goes out, and this makes the manager go to everybody's door there and leave a candle outside. But when she goes out there to retrieve the candle, she hears moaning outside the door. So she goes out there, and this is when she sees the man who is dying from AIDS. It's definitely AIDS, because when she passes him the first time, the people say, don't touch him, he's contagious. Now, back when AIDS first came out, people weren't sure about the disease. They didn't know exactly how you caught the disease. A lot of people thought you can catch it through saliva. They thought that you can just touch somebody and get AIDS. So that is why they said that. But he says, I'm dying, and she says, so am I. Now, in Lillian's mind, she makes this person who is dying of AIDS her husband, makes it Brian, and he tells her a story that kind of gives us a reflection of what's going on inside of her mind. He says that the reason he is dying of AIDS is because his boyfriend abandoned him and has a wife. And 2 months ago, when he realized he was sick, is when everything broke up. And they were supposed to go to a show together and hear Lena Horne sing Stormy Weather. But that wasn't going to happen. And that's when we hear Lillian sing Stormy Weather to him, and while she's singing this song to him, we see him pass away, and that's when she takes the shroud and puts it over his face. Now, we heard him say that his boyfriend already had a child, and I think that's exactly what's going through Lillian's mind, because we do find that out later. We'll talk about that later. And then when Lillian does finally leave the room, we see him disappear. The whole body of himself is just gone. Now, back in her room, she finishes recording a story to Apollo, and not that his father didn't want him, but that he wanted him too much. And we do see Brian and Lillian again. They're on a picnic when she's young, and this is when you see how sketchy it truly was, because he starts saying stuff to her like, you're here alone, you have nobody here, nobody would know anything, I could have you committed, I could do whatever I want to you, and basically nobody would come for you because you don't have anybody. And I'm sure this is running through her mind when Brian finds a receipt from the Elk Hotel and starts accusing her of having an affair. But she filed for divorce and they weren't together when she swears she never even had been there. We have to remember that she is an immigrant, he's a white police officer, she's a black immigrant, and he's going crazy. He already talked to her about he could do anything he wanted to her and no one would come for her because she didn't have anybody. And he's screaming at her saying that ain't no other man gonna ever raise his son. So when she comes home that night from her job and she sees this dude inside of the house, what is he doing? He is trying to drown Apollo. He'd rather kill him than have another man be around his son. And that is what forces Lillian to do what she had to do, and that is take him out and whack him for the protection of her son. And she's lived with this guilt her whole life, because how can you tell your son that, hey, your father tried to kill you, so I killed him? How would people actually believe a situation like that? It just seems too far-fetched, and that is why she has been the way she has been her whole life, just trying to protect Apollo from everything. And it seems that Apollo has inherited this trait, this self-absorption from his father, and that is why she's trying to undo this deal, because he should know straight up that this is not your child. This has not been your child for 2 months, but he's so self-absorbed of being a good father that he's overlooking everything that his wife was able to see. And he rather raise this creature, this horrible monster, than give up on the fact that this is not his son. Just like this fairy tale wedding, and this is supposed to be a fairy tale story of his mother and his father, truly is not that great of a fairy tale. It's actually a horror story. So for her actions, we see that young Lillian went to this hotel to kill herself and then leave this message for Apollo. But before she does kill herself, she is visited by a god, and this god is in the form of herself in the future, older version of herself. And she makes a deal with this god, saying that I will be the best mother I can be if you allow me to get away with this murder. Because not only did she didn't have anybody, Brian forgot to realize that he didn't have anyone that truly cared for him and would come looking for him the way she had, so that she could get rid of this body. She could get rid of all these things and not have to worry about everything that happened, not have to worry about police coming looking for him or anything like that. So she does do this and she takes this deal. Now the question remains in this show, did she really get visited by what she perceived to be a god in real life to save her son? And now she's paying the price. Did she sell her soul, not her soul, but her grandson's soul, in order to be the best mother she could be and to raise her son the way she felt fit? That is something we'll have to ask. But it seems that when we looked at Brian, and we heard the story earlier in the show that there was a transsexual who was murdered inside the Elks Hotel, and we did see him as a gay man that was dying of AIDS, and we seen him in a bath of gold, that this was him that got murdered. She somehow got this body back there and murdered him and then stuffed him in a suitcase. Stuck his body in a gold dress, and that's why people thought he was transsexual, and nobody back then would ever even care about it, because that's the way the world was. That's why when we see her singing the song, she's wearing the gold dress, and then we see him in the gold water, which basically means she put him in that gold dress and stuck his ass in the water at the bottom of the sea. Which she got the idea to do that from the argument that she heard upstairs, where the guy said, if you mess with me, you'll find yourself in the suitcase at the bottom of the sea. And this is when she starts feeling her freedom, and she finally feels like an American at this point in her life, after she's been oppressed and abused by this guy and has that burden taken off of her. Finally, she starts to feel like an American, and the weight is off her shoulder because she did have an affair with her boss, and Apollo is her boss's son, and this dude was never actually the father of Apollo. We thought something was fishy by the skin tone of Apollo, that it didn't really look like a mixed skin tone, and now we have 100% confirmation from the actual receipt. When they showed the ledger at the end of the episode, we can see that this is where they went to have their affair, and she must have got impregnated by him while she was there. Overall, this is a great episode. I will do a full theory call-in live stream, and we can chop it up some more and talk more about this episode. I thought it was a great penultimate episode. We have one more episode to go, folks, and I can't wait to get to that episode. And it definitely seems, the way that the show was flowing, that they plan on doing a season 2 for it. But you tell me in the comment section what you think about this episode. And if you like the way I do this, please thumbs up the video, spread it across the realm, and of course, subscribe. Until next time, you know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.